Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. Wait a second. Okay. Before we start the presentation, I'd like to introduce myself by myself. I'm Shafira Kharina. You can call me Shaf or Fira or Shafi. That's how Mr. Maya call me Shafi. I'm a final year student, but don't just ask me which semester I am right now because I'm just a final year student because that doesn't even affect our value. So I'm going to help the host to lead the discussion for the next less than 2 hours, I think. Um, we have a topic here. It's pretty interesting, but also quite hard to explain and describe, actually. So the topic is about radicalization, puzzle, and extremism route, the uncertain pathways to terrorism. Well, actually, I don't really fit into the terminology of radicalization. It's pretty arbitrary for me, actually, because radical means radix in Latin, or radic. It is something like root or rooted. Um, it's supposed to be some kind of fundamental thing. It's a principle. It's a value, actually. It is not a bad connotation, actually. Even in our Indonesian dictionary, radical means something that fundamental. It is like advance in the way we think, advance in the way we act. So, but maybe in our tonight discussion, I'm going to have the terminology as probably as a bad connotation, but let's just find it out. So, yeah, before I start the first slide, I'd like to ask you guys, what is the first thing that come across your mind when you heard the word terrorism? Is there anyone who want to have a kickstart for our next discussion? Maybe you can raise your hands. What is the first thing that come across your minds when you heard terrorism? Is there anyone who wants to try?
Probably me.
Okay, the floor is yours. The time is yours, actually. The floor is yours.
Yeah, because becoming the host felt me to raise my hand. Okay, just at the beginning. Okay, because I'm sharing the screen, I couldn't raise my hand virtually. Okay, so in my mind, when the word terrorism appear, or everyone asks me about the meaning of the terrorism, like not simply being terrified, not simply being awfully oppressed, but to more physical and mental harms impact. So it's like being terrorized. Not only you are being scared, to not be able to not being able to exercise your full authority, but at the same time you feel like you're being threatened mentally. I mean, like it can endanger it. You can lose your soul, your very life. It means, and it means you're unable to do anything. Okay, you just like feel like powerless and helpless. You couldn't do anything. You even couldn't think of helping others people, others. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's about terrorism in my perspective.
Okay, thank you for your point of view. Yeah, you highlight that terrorism is something that make you feel like you are being terrorized, and you just not feel the fear, but you feel like you are threatened. That's a good point. So, any other speakers here who wants to give a different, probably, or add some opinion about terrorism? Just what is the thing that come across your minds about terrorism? Probably, okay. Sony Afriansha, Mr. Sony Afriansha, yeah, the time is yours. You are still mute. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
Mr.
evening,
Sony.
guys. This is so interesting topic for tonight: radicalization, puzzle, and extremism roots, the uncertain pathways to terrorism. With the terrorisms, is unsettling for our country also, and in my perspective, uh, terrorism is the use of violence to achieve political aims. Maybe like that one. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sony. Yeah. Yeah. You say that terrorism is it has a meaning. It has a something to be achieved. That's a good point too. It's you add some from Mr. Sunshine. Any other wants to speak up here? Probably Mr. Indrewanov.
Hi, yeah, is my voice is audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, yeah. Based on my perspective, there are four types of the terrorism. Yeah, the first is like the new terrorisms, the state terrorism, dissident terrorism, and religious terrorism and ideological terrorism. So it's kind of that something to be happened in our country is talking about the ideology and the religious terrorisms. Yeah, because they're trying to force a kind of their ideology that it should be implemented in one state or in the nations. And also it's almost same talking about religions. They're trying to force the people in that state or in that country how how they can get a glory, and all people have to follow their their religion and also their ideologies. So these are the reasons that many kind of terrorism exactly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Indrewanov. Yeah, there are several type of terrorism actually. It is not just in religious terrorism, but there's also state terrorism. Probably state terrorism, it is more like terror that made by a country, by a state. It is a country it used to a country who has uh, like a dictatorship and authoritarian. So that is how sometimes state terrorism happens. I actually saw Mr. Ahmad Fatullah Afida, Afida what? Raise his hands before. Do you want to give some of your
Oh, yeah.
opinions?
Maybe something that I want to talk in this discussion will be quiet little. Um, in my perspective, terrorism is not about radicalism or extremism because I believe that the root of both of them are dependent on their egoism. So it will back to their ego, because sometimes someone want to do terror to want to share the afraidness or maybe frightening people is not only about they have their own belief. Yes, yeah, because they have their own belief and they get it so fanatics. So uh, and I think it's not just about the fanatism from them, but it will be more near about their what tendency to share their ego among the people. Sometimes they want to make people afraid or share the terror because they hate, or maybe because they are jealous. So rather than I I mean, I pretend that they are so radical or extremism. I think they are more nearer to be more egoism. Thank you.
Okay, that's a different opinion from Mr. Ahmad Fathullah, saying that it is not just about radical or being radicals or being extremists or so on, so on. That's something in a bad connotation, but it is also about ego, probably selfishness, something like that. So, okay, any other one who wants? Okay, I see Mr. G, right? Yeah,
Yes, correct.
time is yours.
Yes. Sorry for about a bit noisy here. So for me, I've been reading a lot of books about this, but the most interesting one is coming from Noam Chomsky. His book is Manufacturing Concern, Who Rules the World, uh, How to Survive, Survival Rule. I forgot the name, but a lot, the book from him. So when we see deeply about the cases of why terrorism is happening today, for example, in Middle East or more for Indonesia, mostly they are coming from the fabricated system that had been sustained by the existing government as a weapon, for example, to change the attention of the people, to change the policy, to hide some of the issue, and then mostly they are free, mostly in the protection of the government for a few different people. I mean, for people that is we can call it radical and so on and so forth. And when the time is needed, they will be what is that ruled out to do some such terrorism. But we have an anticipation about that, and then moreover, uh, it always be used in the important time, and it will never happen in the usual time. It always before that or previously or after that there is an important cases causalities that running or maybe happening in the government itself. So uh, but I'm not going deeply about the reason why and about what is that uh, the purpose of terrorism, because they are different in developing and developed country, different in the Middle East and also in Asia. But over about that, I think that terrorism is human manufactured. I mean, uh, the system itself that create them. When we looked at the roots of what the religion is, there is no value of that, except for few how we can call it aliran. What is that group? Yeah, let's say group. For example, like Wahhabi or Shia, for example, they always do that. They always do. I mean, the harsh approaches for doing such as they say this is the truth, but that is not the truth. It is only a weapon that handled by the government that has purpose for doing such things. So maybe there is a few of my opinion about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Aji, for your statement and notion. Yeah, Mr. Aji highlight that there is a statement from Noam Chomsky. That is quite interesting if you talk about Noam Chomsky. Actually, he said that the the terrorism itself is the power that conducted by the country itself. He refers to the U.S. Said that the U.S. creating terrorism or some kind of that, and I also could highlight that Mr. Aji saying that Mr. Aji said that the terrorism itself is not, it's quite different in other country. Maybe each country has a different terrorist probably. Maybe in USA it's a different, in Middle East it's different. There's some Muslim Brotherhood or some kind of that, and Wahhabi, just like you mentioned before. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Probably any other one who wants to give their views. Okay, I see Mr. Indre Wanov raise his hand. The time is yours, Mr. Indre.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's quite interesting regarding what Aji said last time regarding there are the several genres or the communities that fall by terrorists. So Aji mentioned is one of communities that called by Wahhabi. Yeah, I do agree with this statement. If we talk about the history, yeah, why Saudi Arabia is happy is because of there is enforcement of the ideology to that place Mecca in back then. And several years ago, yeah, several years ago, Mecca is managed by the several people from Nabi Muhammad. It's called, yeah. So the several sites that leads by the several people in with from Nabi Muhammad is like their friend. It's like yeah, many things. But in that time, yeah, there are the king from Hijaz called by Al Wahab, yeah, and also the king also that has much money called by Saud. Yeah. They want to, how to say that? Yeah, they want to take over Mecca in that time from Muhammad communities is called in that time. Yeah. So they did a collaboration between Saud and Al Wahab in that time, and they attacked, yeah, Muhammad and friends. It's not Muhammad. After Muhammad was passed away in that time. Yeah. So they attacked Mecca and they got that glory. So this is the reasons that right now that country is called by Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it's because of the attackment of the several people coming from Hijaz, Al Wahab, and also Saudi Arabia, the king of Saud. So these are the reasons that if you see the kings in Saudi Arabia, all of them is called by Salman Al Saud and others. So they are a terrorists in my perspective. So if you want to read more about that, you can read Anjing Gila dari Timur. So it's show the all of thing about the darkness of Saudi Arabia. This is my perspective, and also the several references that I have read before. Thank you.
Unmute yourself first, lady, please. Okay.
Okay, I didn't realize it. Okay, there was a bit historical thing about Saudi Arabia, I think, from Mr. Indra Wanov. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Aji, you raise your hand. You can speak.
Maybe I just give a bit addition, but I don't want to continuing the keyboard statement because it is related with the history. But I'm just going to directly looking at, for example, the extremist group that now existing in every countries now, including a famous ustad here in YouTube, right? They are Wahhabis. So why I say this group is very dangerous, because when we look at the root of it, they are referring to a sheikh, Islamic scholar called Ibn Taymiyyah. He is fuqaha, but however, he has a bad akidah, and it is, what is that? Pro and, no, it is contradict with what has been said by the Salafun Soli. It means the previous, what is that? Islamic scholar that is bigger that is biggest in our format hub. For example, they are referring that people, I mean Muslim people, that that they do, for example, tawasul or something like that, or take barokah. Yeah, they are a shirik, and when someone is shirik, he will. I mean, he is halal. Halal is allowed to kill them. To I mean, their blood is halal, right? It is Wahhabi actually. So in one of his references books, when you going to Umul Qura, for example, university in Jeddah or in Makkah, you can see that a lot of books, they are saying that, for example, Abu Jahal is better tawhid, he has better tawhid than people or Muslims who are doing tawasul. It is how stupid they are, right? However, there's no one from them who are being muhaddis, and they're only referring to the, what is that, to the people that uneducated, like Al-Albani and so on and so forth. They have no sanad. Sanad, it means a relation that is continue from the prophets until now. They have no sanad about that. And then they're just creating the new madhab that, when we follow the previous madhab, it means we are a bad person. We should ijtihad by ourselves. So in that case, the famous of their slogan is back to the Sunnah, back to the Quran, and so on and so forth. But it is false. They are false. How could, for example, ijtihad, mujtahid, it means person who is doing ijtihad. It means creating the law, creating the structure of the rule in Islam, and so on and so forth. They should remember, for example, for minimum 300,000 hadiths with izon isnad, and also understanding Quran, memorizing it, and all with his own tafsir. But Wahhabi, there's no one, so a person like that, and they're creating the dogma, the slogan that is, of course, it's being forced by what is that, the Saudi family and also USA back then, to create that what is that, extremely group that will, for example, destroying Islam by inside. So in that case, when we could see, when you are Sunni, not Mr. Sunni, yeah? So Sunni in a group of aliran, I forgot it. When you're Sunni and Arab, you'll be murdered, or you'll be killed, or you'll be persecuted. And for example, the Wahhabi people going to another country and create a chaotic situation, and then some of country utilizing them, for example, to create terrorism, maintaining them, protecting them, and then some certain of time they will be going out and it's being utilized, for example, to terror the people, and it's what happened in Indonesia right now. So yeah, I think it is dangerous. Understanding dangerous ideology actually. Okay, that is on the. Thank you. There's.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aji, for a long explanation. I think it's continued to Mr. Indra one of statement regarding Arab Saudi and how Wahhabi created terror or something like that. Okay, let's go to the main topic. I think I'm going to give the mic for Mr. Ahmad Fatullah. Yeah, Mr. Ahmad Fatullah, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Shafira, for this precious time. Well, I will not touch about Saudi Arabia or probably about Wahhabism or Sunni or Shia, no, because something that I give more concern about terrorists are about their perspective for distinguishing between the way of thinking in the life. I mean, I suppose that they are fail to distinguish between scientific think, religion think, and artistic think, because sometimes they make them mix. Sometimes they mix them together and they fail to distinguish them. So because of this consideration, sometimes everything that they do is not quite scientifically logics. So yeah, because they fail to distinguish three of them. That is my perspective.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ahmad Fatullah. Uh, anyone who wants to give their deep explanation probably, or we're going to the next slide? Okay, before I'm going to the next slide, maybe I'm going to ask a woman here. Uh, hello, Miss Yuni Apranti. Are you there? No? What if we go to the next woman, Miss Livia? Hello, Miss Livia.
Hello, Miss.
Hello. So, what is your opinion about this issue?
About the state terrorism, I don't really know, but I'm the one who still think that terrorism is based on like people who are in general wanna get into heaven, and then they get brainwashed by some of the syndicate that want to use them or take advantage from them to make a chaos, and then manipulate their mind into like following their order in order to make like exploding a bomb and suicide and whatever. But actually not all of them really know that about their religion actually. They just like getting getting a little bit hypnotized or manipulated by the choice of words that the big boss use it to make them follow their order. So I think it's both. Maybe a state also have like the role to manipulate their citizen and some of their people, but in order to be happen, also the victim like who become the actor also they also have like the extreme side of thinking about their religion and what their god want them to do in order to like giving giving their life and sacrifice their life to get to heaven. It's still related for me. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss Livia. Yeah, Miss Livia had like that. The terrorism itself probably big by a country, by a state. They're manipulated by a state probably, or a big boss. We don't know yet. To create a terror, to create a fear or chaotic in a country or a specific region. Okay, is there anyone who still wants to give their opinions? Or I'm going to the next slide. Should I? Okay, no one raised his hand or her hands. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Mr. Mile, yes. Okay, so we are already defining. I think it's supposed to be a definition of terrorism. Nope. Is this a correct slide? Yes. Okay. Okay. So what is the yes, the objective of terrorism? We already talked about what is terrorism, probably in general perspective. But uh, what is the actual objective of terrorism? Why they're attacking a civilian? Why they're attacking public space or certain space, certain public space? Is there anyone who wants to have their give their opinion here?
Me first.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Mr. Sunshine first. The time is yours.
Okay. So probably, avenged sevenfold. They want to have a revenge. Okay, some people doing terrorism actions or attitudes since the governments or the one who need to stand for justice unable to prove the required actions, so they don't feel some just actions don't or implemented by the one who has the full authority to do so, and that's why they feel like being betrayed, and it induced them to go overboard, to do something unexpected by the government and also by the one they consider as enemy or terrorizing them in the beginning. Okay, I think that's for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mael. So we go to the next speakers, Mr. Ahmad Fatullah. The time is yours.
Well. Okay, thank you. Um, in my opinion, oh no, no. Firstly, I believe that something that I will talk in this discussion will be false because I am not a terrorist. Because I believe that anything that they objective will be dependent on their hurt, and and it will be quite hard to reveal something that exists on their hurt. But in my opinion, by seeing what they are conducted, firstly, they want to be acknowledged by the society. I mean, they want to show that they are exist the actualization of their life seems like that. Firstly, and secondly, probably they want to make people afraid because they want to be the new leader or maybe the new existence that have the power and want to seems like fight with the I mean seems like the governments that exist in the society. Maybe just both of them, something that I see from what they are conducted. Thank you.
Okay, excellent standpoint from Mr. Ahmad Fatullah that the terrorist actually wants to create, the terrorist itself, the objective of them being terrorized everywhere, they just want to be acknowledged. They want to people know that they exist. Okay, I see Mr. Alexander, or yeah, the time is yours. Yeah, Mr. or yeah, Mr. Alexander.
Yeah. I'm here. I'm here. So could you hear my voice
Okay.
clearly?
Yeah, you're devil.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving a chance to speak up here. Well, when we take a look at the situation in which terrorism cases are happening in the world, usually, usually, most of people or even the government advertise that they want to create a fear to us, right? Therefore, the solution for the government or for the authority to tackle this terrorism is by making hashtags "We are not afraid," right? That's what I saw several cases, several years previously. Well, I think it's okay, but it's not enough, I think, because the objective of terrorism is not only making people afraid of something, but it's more rooted, I think, in our society. In my viewpoint, it's related to, they want to express themselves due to economic problems that they possess currently in the world. Most of terrorists, as far as I'm concerned, most of them are lower middle income people in the world, because they are they lose their economy, they feel weak in our society, so they want to try to find a solution or way out to from their current situations recently. So in this case, they find terrorism as a way to go out from their problem. Therefore, as far as I see, most of them are weak people. They are isolated in our society, so they trying to find a way out to go from their problems. And unfortunately, the solution is terrorism. Therefore, if we would like to tackle this situation, we need to look at the economical issues occurring in our world to tackle the root problem of this kind of terrorism. That's my first point. Secondly, when they wanna, you know, overthrow the regimes or the countries, I think nothing in history, something that called terrorism, could easily overthrow the countries or the regimes. What I see is otherwise. Every terrorism case happening in the world makes regimes reinforce their authority to, you know, to probably make their power strong to tackle or even to abolish their enemies in the world, or even as a gimmick, you know, to cover the roots of problem in our society. And um, they try to look for supports for their societies. That's what happened in US, right, in 2011. After terrorism case happened, sorry, not 11, 2001, 9/11. Okay, after terrorism happened in the world, United States found their how do we call that? It's like legitimation to impose a law called war and terror, happening in Middle East, and even they have been sending their armies to the developing countries, right? So I think that's the problem. Terrorism in our history always make authority reinforce their power to cover roots of problem. That's another opinion, other perspective that I could share. Thank you, Ms. Sharifa.
It's Shafira actually. Okay, yeah, thank you, Mr. Alex, for giving your opinion that terrorism is not just to create a terror or fear. They're access because they want to blow up their notion. They want people to hear what's the struggle of them. Okay, that's a good point. So I see Mr. Indrewanov raise his hands. Yeah, time is yours.
Yeah, well, so this is really interesting actually when the old people ask what is the object of terrorism. But before I'm trying to explain regarding the object or the purpose of terrorism in this situation, I'd like to go to the root why terrorism is happened. It's the first thing is because of there is radicalism. Yeah. I just want to tell you guys in the first beginning, yeah, the word of radicalism is it the positive word. Only right now the people think radical is like the bad word, the bad action. But behind that, radical is the positive word actually. What the meaning of radical? Radical is like the people who has principle, the people who has a belief. So it's called by radical by the definition of the language disaster. And afterwards, yeah, when they have the principle, they go to extremism, yeah, because they are too addicted with their religion, they're too addicted with their ideology, blah blah blah, and others. It makes them go to extremism. They begin to do not respect the old ideology. They begin to do not respect regarding to the other religion, the other religions. Yeah, when they feel that and there is a strict fires in their brain and also in their heart, it leads them to do the action. They try to force the people to do the same thing is like what they did, yeah, in ritual, in something that related with them. They do the action physically, they hurt the people, they kill the people, they make a war and others. So it's called by terrorism. So in this question, I would like to, invite you to one of the example that the people knows the people knows nowadays that called by terrorists. The people know ISIS. ISIS is not terrorist actually. Yeah, if you know about the history how ISIS is created. ISIS is created because it's one of the statements from the president of Syria back then. They said, I am God in my country, so all of you have to follow us. It's because of their authoritarian in that situation. It makes the people disagree with all of the statement, with all of the policy because they are authoritarian in that situation. Is the reason that in the first beginning of the movement, they try to make the communities that called by ISIS, and one of the creator is called by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Yeah. They want to kick the authoritarian president in the Syria in that time, and back to the good thing is like there is no authoritarian in the situation. Yeah, and they win. Yeah, ISIS win. When ISIS win, they it makes them feel that wow, we are strong, we have everything, and others, why not? We are now trying to manage this country. Yeah. There is addictive there. There is trying to force the people there. It makes them to become the thing that more crazy. So this is the reason that in 2017, I forgot, they tried to publish one of the book is called by the Scatter of Python. They want to make all of people in this world, it should be a Muslim. So it began make them to get the extremism. And after they got the extremism, they do the terrorism. They invite the people to war, they kill the people and others. So it makes ISIS right now is called by terrorists. But don't forget, in the first beginning, how ISIS is created is because of want to uphold kebenaran, how justice in their countries. But because of they are too addicted with that, and they did do more than what I mentioned before, it lead them to create a terrorist. So this is the reason that I just want to tell you guys, every people, every communities that you call now as the terrorists, of course, they have their own purpose, including this country also. They create some things that related to the people, how to make the people afraid, how to make the people doesn't want to out blah 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 and others. So also it's called by terrorists. So it's called by the new state of terrorists. So there are many terrorists. What I mentioned before, the new state of terrorists, the terrorists of ideology, the terrorists of religion, the terrorists of blah 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 and others. So every terrorist that I mentioned before, they have their own purpose, how to force the people to do the same thing with them in ideology and religion. So that's all my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Indrawano, for your opinion. Yeah, I think I'm going to move to Mr. Eka. Mr. Eka, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Safira. Nice to meet you. Maybe I just want to add some of my friends answer already. Maybe they already uh, answer it better, but I just want to put some thing that I know that actually terrorism they try to make terror, just as simple as that. They're trying to make terror anywhere, everywhere, and anytime, that they want to create a chaos, that after the chaos they can take control in order to maintain the peace, something like that. So they create the chaos and then make the peace within the chaos, something like that. And then for me, I just like maybe terrorism is like they want to spread their ideology, their idea, and their goals in their society, or in order to make their work for themselves better. and and it means that they trying to, when they not capable to fight in democracy or in election or something, and then they create an army, because maybe in history Just like we know, the first time terrorist terms came up is when French Revolution, when left wing called by the government is terrorism. So it means terrorist is not bad at all in that time, because they're trying to coup d'etat the King Louis, and then they succeed at that time. And but now we have improved the knowledge, we have improved the meaning about terrorism, that means that terrorism also wants to create a chaos because of some revenge, just like Mr. Ahmad Fatullah said before, because they have a revenge on something, or maybe just like in Afghanistan when they really hate United States, and then they became terrorists in order to take control the government to maybe launch the missile to United States in some etc. etc. And also for example in Uyghur maybe, or in Myanmar, China Uyghur for example, United States trying to take control over mainland, but they cannot coup d'etat or change the regime in China. So they create terrorism in Uyghur in order to make a chaos in China, and then they take back all their troops from Afghanistan. So they hope that Afghanistan someday will be the failed state, and then and then the chaos will spread into the Uyghur, because Uyghur is the last chance for America to enter the mainland in the region, something like. So I think terrorism is not about just about ideology, just all about religion or something, but maybe it also can be just like maybe state sponsorship for terrorism, something like that. So in order to want to take control over the country, and then you create the chaos within terrorism, and then you can how to say it, you can take control the government after the chaos, something. Maybe that's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eka. You say that probably terrorism is not that bad. It is to balancing the peace in the country, and terrorism itself back then in the new left era, it is not bad. It is to create peace either, because there is an authoritarian government that trying to oppress the civilians. That's a good point. So we move to Miss or Mr. Chikoneng. What's a unique name? Yeah, the floor is yours.
Well, can you hear me, Miss?
Yeah, you're a dribble.
Okay. Okay. First of all, we should going to what is the meaning of terrorism exactly, because nowadays we are difficult to difference between terrorism and rebellion, and the terrorism tend to the meaning of there is a community perhaps in the Islamic State or whatever is it, and they utilize like the weapon to take a control, like to take a control government, or also they uh, conduct the suicide by the bomb. But in the other hand, the rebellion to bring their weapon to take a control in the certain thing, like the disappointing what the statement did or whatever is it. And let's we took back a lot. I mean, when it's come from the Islamic countries, it's really complicated. I couldn't agree more, and I agree with Mr. in the statement at the previous time. But there are a lot of theory too that we can calculate how the ISIL or Islamic State and literate came up at that Middle East. The first theory they said it's come from the disappointed what the Western did.
For example, like the invasion to Iraq, it is the first conflict that came up from the Western that they say there is a nuclear, but Americans said we don't have the intention to take control of Iraq, but we had the intention to change that regime to be democratic. They tend to move in the ideological democracy. But in the other hand, Islamic countries tend to move to the historical perspective. For example, like the Islamic country doesn't hate with the Unani or Greek, and they learn a lot of books from the Socrates, Aristotle, and everything. But after all, they influence to the Spanish, or we can call by dynasty Ayubia, and then the European conduct what is that? The Salib War, and they dominate the Islamic countries by colonization. And after that, there is the several countries get the freedom, and uh, for this situation, war became what's that? The revenge. They tend to not interested with the Western at the moment because the colonization gives the perspective it is the bad thing that we should avoid. That is the first theory. And the second term is the Islamic countries that say to be moved to the socialist, or radically I can say should be united by the socialism in the perspective of Islamic State. Because one by one in the I mean Iran busy with their intention and Arab also busy with intention. So we should will to unite it and take a control again, because at the previous history we got a great conquer. In this the third theory they said there are a rival between Sunni and Shia, dominated by Iran influence by Shia, and Sunni influenced by Arab Saudi. So this is more complicated because we don't know what is exactly happened there. But the theory really exists to answer that question. And for Indonesia, can we say a terrorism, I mean Gestapo, Gerakan 30 September, and also the accident in Madiun as the terrorism? It is the unprecedented question, right? When we come to the term of terrorism, what is exactly? So the objective of terrorism is they are disappointed with what the government did. It did like a social welfare, education, and everything. So they come up with another perspective because they feel hurt for many time or centuries, and they need to change perhaps ideology or also the government system that they hope it will be better than before. And it is my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chikoneng. Okay. Is there anyone here who wants to give their opinion? Probably women. I'd like to I want to hear some opinion from a women here regarding this terrorism, this issue. Is there any women here who wants to speak up? Just give your views. What about Miss uh, Miss Dalty? Which one?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, Miss Delbit. Yeah, you're audible. Want to give some
Okay.
views?
Okay. Thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity. In my perspective about this terrorism, I mean the terrorists they want to achieve their goal by creating the confusion in society, and because of their offense, many group of people misunderstood. And when the society get into the confusion, they will launch their goal to be the controller maybe of everything from the politic, economic, and etc. And about the fright that they create makes people stay away from their religion, and because if many people stay away from it, they will easily takes over it. Thank you. That's all my perspective about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Belbin, for your views that you were saying that terrorism probably wants to take over the state, wants to have a big power in a certain region or maybe a country. Okay, Mr. Aji, I see you raise your hands. Yeah, the time is yours.
Very interesting previous statement. Maybe I just want to continue a bit. So the majority, for example, let's say in Indonesia, we are Muslim, right? We have, in psychological terms, we have in-group identification. In that case, when something wrong in externalities, in council, for example, in our government, majority of us will defend it. For example, will oppose it when they are doing wrong, when we have as a position. So in that case, the power of the majority is too strong here. And how, for example, how we can, the existing government reduce their power, for example, to not able to make them feel inferior to losing their own de facto political power. For example, in Suharto era, they are creating the new oligarchies that was controlling the economy. Because most of the Muslims, for example, they are incapable, for example, handle the economy, and the oligarchy did it. And Suharto in that regime, it is Suharto was creating that oligarchies to stabilizing what has been said by Eka, okay, stabilizing the condition to make it more dynamics for the Suharto to still sit in his position. So in other case, coming back to the terrorism itself. So in some part also, it is how the way the existing government reducing the power of the majority by in-group identification, because when, for example, Islam, for example, had been justified that it is, terrorist religion and so forth. For example, you can see in the US, mostly people of non-Muslim or Muslim, they will say that, oh, this is the terrorist religion, and I don't want to enter it. I don't want to know about it, and so on and so forth. So the justification about that will creating like long-term memories that is indoctrinating the people. For example, about communism, you could see Indonesia. Communism is not bad. The supporter of the Hamas in Palestine is communism. The free education, free healthcare in Cuba, communism is not wrong. But here, it's like the coin struggle back then in the Soviet era, that communism is bad. Because what? When we allow the communism alive in this country about this ideology and its implication, for example, the worker will be stronger than the oligarchy ones. And for example, the inequality will never be happen. And 1% of population will never control the economy, and so on and so forth, right? Because they want to do it. They want to do the opposite side, like what Abid said. They were decoying the communist ideology that this is bad, that this is atheism also related, that this will kill the people, and a lot of decoying struggles back then. We know that exactly. So I really adore to manufacturing concern, actually, the book from Chomsky, that in some terms, what has been said by Kiba also, the term, the narrative, will influence the mind of the people. When we can control the narrative, we can control the mind of the people. And the device to control the narratives is creating, for example, a condition that is suitable for the new narratives. What is that? One of them is terrorism. That's maybe one of my opinion. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Aji, for your views toward this issue regarding power and terrorists. Maybe we're going to the next slide. Yeah. Okay, it is supposed to be the second slide, but that's okay. This is just a legal definition of terrorism, according to UN Security Council internationally, and according to the Indonesian Act on Terrorism. Actually, in my PC, it's a bit cracking the presentation. Can everyone see the slides? No, or just me?
I
No.
can see it.
Yeah, the same with me. But that's okay. I think we can move with just a legal definition. Okay, this is the next question that I'd like to ask. Probably in a previous, Mr. Indrawanov already mentioned the distinction between radicalism, extremism, terrorism, or the flow of, or three of them. But I'd like to hear another point of view of other speakers. How, or could you please elaborate more distinction between radicalism, extremism, and terrorism? Because it is a bit hard to define, actually. Okay, is there anyone who wants to speak up here? Just like Mr. Shanchan mentioned that the other the other speaker that really haven't talked yet. None. Should I appoint one of you? I'd like to hear an opinion from Mr. Hu. Are you there, Mr. Hu?
Wait, miss.
Okay.
Okay, because I do the evaluation so that I can focus on this discussion. Okay, wait. I kill two birds with one stone because while joining this discussion and I do the evaluation in another occasion, but I'll try. Could you elaborate the distinction between radicalism, extremism, and terrorism? Well, yeah, what Mr. Randermanov said before about is different between ISIS and terrorism. But lately that I know from the case like KKB in Papua, the soldiers said or the government said that they are terrorism because they are not one side or one purpose to make Indonesian unity. It means Indonesian is not created only from Java Island, but it's created from Java Island, Sumatra, Kalimantan, Maluku, and also Papua. So that the case is who is not one line with Indonesian. Occasionally, it is called by terrorism. But I have the anxious question: why should the terrorism denominate with Islamic? The case is like American when they know about the Muslim or the Islamic where they failed, they will say that they are terrorism. Moreover, when they use what is this? Sadar, sadar, himar. They will mention directly if when they will mention directly if they are terrorism. Because of several years ago, it it came from the problem with the bomb event, if I'm not mistaken, that I read from the several articles. Yeah, why should the terrorism denominate Islamic? Yeah, that's it from my question. Thank you, Miss Safira.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hu. Uh, okay. I see no one who wants to raise his hands. Is that because okay? Mr. Hamar Fatullah, yeah. Time is yours. Yes.
Primarily, I just want to make it simple. Seems like I believe that three of them are similar. All of them are ism or the idea. but the distinguish of them is about the perspective of each of them. Seems like this one. Sometimes in the radicalism perspective, they try to define something, just it, until the radix or the root of something, until they know the definition of something, just it. But sometimes one person could be different to the other people because they have the different brain, they have the different culture, they have the different life. So because of this consideration, sometimes one person will be believe that his definition is the best definition rather than the other definition about something. That is extremism. And then when they try to make sure the other people that its definition is the truth of this thing, it could be terrorism. So they try to harm, they try to make them afraid, they try to terror the other perspective about this definition is the conduct of terrorism. That is my idea. Maybe I'm false.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Abba Fatullah, for your point of view in this. I see Mr. Aji.
Actually,
Yeah, Mr. Aji.
I'm not raising my hand previously because I let the other to speak up first, and because I raised the
Yeah.
first time to speak up, yeah. And
Okay,
maybe
maybe
the other will be bored with my statement. But actually, I have an opinion about this. Maybe just simple one, right? So every word, for example, has its own definition. That is not only one transcription. There is a lot of translation. For example, when we look the words of imsak in Indonesia, there is different meaning. Actually, in Arabic, it is different meaning. In Baghdad, it's different meaning, right? Only in imsak. Imsak, it means that's home in Arabic, but here is stop eating before subuh, right? A lot of things. But however, come back to this one. Radicalism, radical. When we look at exact definition, when we relate it with the technology, the meaning is innovative and so on and so forth. When it relates with the, for example, academic ways, it is thinking out of the box. But when we think about the condition in our political thing, it is people who are fundamentalists or something like that. And also extremism, it means the people who believe on something that is extreme, that is not in mainstream. For example, they are allowing for doing the harsh thing and so on and so forth. And also for the last one is terrorism. Yeah, we can what's that, defined in a lot of ways of thinking. However, I really what is that, trace back this one to the manufacturing council, right? So in that book, it says that every word is always being fabricated and also always being influenced by the exiting of the government, because the exiting of the government has all of the monopolies of devices, for example, tools or precondition to create the meaning. For example, when the Indonesia, we are progressive now, for example, in technology, we can use the radical words to do something that innovative. But because we are always helping demagogy of politics, right? Identity of politics and so on and so forth. We use it radical words to something that is bad to the fundamental people and so on and so forth. So every word's always being influenced by this thing that has been said by Chomsky. It's always being fabricated. So be careful and share the Rocky said. What is that? I can't say it. That's from me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aji, for your point of view. We move to Mr. Chi Koneng.
Okay. Okay. Well, perhaps the meaning based on what's the text we can find in Wikipedia and whatever is it has mentioned by Mr. Aji. But I would say that the different what's that? The difficult to distinction between three terms of this is when this term is utilized to force another one that had the different perspective from the government, so it will be a problem because It is something catchy and also can interact the media to always inform it, and we will forget about the other issues like corruption and bravery and whatever is it. So I hope that Indonesia can implement like really a justice in the prosecutor, and also the law firm and whatever like the system of law in Indonesia. So the term of this will be fair, not only in the one thing, but also the another thing. For example, like based on the book that I read from Mustafa Akhil, Islam Without Extremists, they mention about the secularism in Turkey. It is freedom for the secularists, but isn't a freedom for a Muslim. For example, like the freedom means we can choose everything that we want, but unfortunately, we are forbid to utilize the scarf, or that Mr. Hudori said, like chadar, and also we are forced to don't utilize cingkrang, or what is it in English? It is not a freedom for a Muslim, because for when is it a freedom? So we can choose whatever we want. So that the definition to be justified in law firms, it will be useful. Then also utilize this term just on only political issues. And I will answer what Ms. Rodori said before about why the terrorism is come to the meaning of Islam. Because after the communism is ruined, the rival of the ideology from the Western is the Islam. So what is the other ideology? Perhaps you can say, guys, in this forum, that can be a rival from the another ideology that had dominated the world. So it means like the communism get the pleasure from the Western. So what is the meaning of communism exactly? Uni Soviet has a different meaning of the communism, and also Beijing too. And in the term of the Islam, there are a lot of meaning that we can very membedakan or distinguish about this term. For example, like the rationalist versus the traditionalist, why there is not a mutajilah in this modern era? Because the mutajilah is the Muslim that utilize the rationalist at the moment. But nowadays, the traditionalists dominate the Islamic term. So it will be difficult to find out what is really exactly the term of rahmatan lil alamin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chikoneng. You like to underline it that definition is just a political things. So we don't have to have a settled definition of each of this issue. Okay, I think we move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is a definition just by myself. Radicalism, extremism, and terrorism. Radical is a process which an individual become increasingly extremist in their political, religious, and social ideologies. So, and it turns to extremism. Sometimes to being an extremist, it's come from being a radical first, despite of there is some of us, then myself too, saying that radical is a good connotation. Actually, it's not a bad connotation. Extremism, holding an extreme political, religious views, often advocating illegal, violent, or other form of extreme behavior. And terrorism itself is a set of action that involving threats or the use of force and violence with the aim of achieving predetermined outcomes. Commit to political, religious, and ideological purpose. Okay, let's move to the next question, I think. Okay, so we come to the what factors that actually encourage individual to be an extremist or to be a terrorist? Anyone wants to speak up first? There's so many factors that probably already mentioned before by the speakers. Any other than Mr. Aji, please?
Use clothes like me, you'll be like labeled terrorism, right? Yeah, yeah. The terrorist. Yeah, you're radicalist or you're extremist.
No, it's not like that. You know that. Okay, I think Mr. Eka first. Yeah, Mr. Eka, time is yours.
Okay, for internal, I think when the last bomb or someone attacked the Mabes Polri, I read the letters that the the bomber wrote to their family, and I think based on that letter, I don't know if that a template or something, but from that letter I can see that the main problem for the terrorists or extremists is based on injustice. They want justice. They want wealth, but the government or a state cannot provide them with justice. So I think the internal problem for that is really about justice. They want to make their life better, but they can depend on the government. So they try to make a move, something like that. But they're not organized well. I think when they are organized well, I think it's, we will face different results, for example. And for external, I think it's because the geopolitics change in the world. For example, like the war between United States and China, the war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and then the war between West Europe and all the coalition in Asia, for example. I think that external problem also can encourage someone to be an extremist. For example, like what's in Papua, the liberation people of fresh freedom of West Papua or something like that. They I think they want to see the big map of the world, the politics things, and then they see the chance to trying to make a real move to be an independent country as well, something like that. I think the external factors will be on that, and others, I don't know others, but I can see that all of the terrorist problem is the main cause, the main root problems is always about economy. When they choose to be socialist, when they choose to be communist, when they choose to be Islamist as their ideology, is not it depends on who asked them to join with the movement or the group or something like that. When you are in Middle East, maybe you will be more comfortable with Islam ideology to try to fight with capitalists or United States. And when you are in West Europe or East Europe, you will comfortable with socialists or something. And I think there's no such thing that maybe just like before my friends always said that it's caused from the religion or something. I think all the main problem that encourage individuals to be extremists or terrorists is always about economy and injustice, something. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eka. You highlight that the main problem.
One more.
Okay.
It's because we deficit of love, so try to make chaos something. We're deficit of
Okay.
love.
Okay, thank you for your views. You highlight that every problem that make people encourage people to be an extremist or terrorist just because of the academic issues that happens in our society, the injustice, and so on. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Aji, I'm not going to point out you again. Maybe we're going to move to other speakers. I'd like to empower women. Okay, I think we're going to move to Miss Fitri. Miss Fitri, can you give me some views or from you toward this? Hello, are you there, Miss Fitri? Okay, maybe there is some.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm here.
okay. Miss Fitri, the time is yours. How's your views about this?
Okay, I think about radicalism is very dangerous, especially for student of college as me. You know that radicalism is uh, very dangerous, especially for student of college, because like in my university there is an issue about radicalism. So in our university there is a policy to against the radicalism, like uh, yeah, the policy to again the radicalism, because yeah, you know that radicalism is very dangerous like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fitri, for your point of views. It's also about that you say that this is very dangerous because it could affect students in a college. Maybe sometimes it's already involving students, I think. We don't know. Okay, I think we move to the next slide, maybe. Okay, this is quite interesting. Why extremism or terrorism deemed to be associated with religious spectrum, Islam particularly? Okay, I see Mr. Ahmad. Yeah, Mr. Ahmad, you raise your hands. If the time is yours.
Humankind have their own way to think, start from their existence in this world. Firstly, they think about the belief about the God, and then they see about the natural phenomenon, and they start to think scientifically. And then they find that the way to live patient and feel good by the art. Why it could be happen in the religious spectrum rather than in the scientific spectrum, or maybe artistic spectrum happens to create the terrorism, because in religion someone believe without any reason, so it's quite vulnerable to be created or manipulated by the ego of particular people that want to create the terror among society. So because of this consideration, why religious spectrum could be the basis of terrorism in many areas. However, why Islam could be tempted or this one, yeah, because the ego of those particular people. Just it. Thank you. I mean, when
Okay,
we see in the other countries, we can find the terrorism by the other religion, not only in Islam. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ahmad, for your standpoint. I see Mr. Eka wants to speak up.
Thank you, Ms. Safira. I think I will take the case in Indonesia. Why extremism or terrorism associated with religious spectrum, Islam particularly. I see in Indonesia it's just because Islam is the majority in here. Islam is the majority, and then they they have something in the past that influence what happened in Indonesia right now, like in 1976, when Suharto tried to control Indonesia as a socialism country. They just like be undercover and then prepare for their ideology. It's different with other religions, but basically that I see that maybe because Islam is how to say it, like in Indonesia is because they're majority. When you move to India, Hindu is the majority and Hindu is the terrorist there, something like that. And then when you move to Myanmar, when they kill a lot of Rohingya, we can see that Buddha as a majority there, they try to be the terrorist as itself, for example. And when I want to move bigger as a bigger view, why Islam? Because just like in the past, when socialism or communism can face and can challenge the capitalism. Islam also related with socialism when they wants to be how to say alternative ideology to faces capitalism, and it's also related when Europe and United States that we can say they are basically Catholic, and then we can say that you Islam and Catholic or Christian that have a long history about three of them, something like that. And I think that the labelization to Islam as extremism or terrorism, I think based on how West or how United States want to control their power or their politics in Middle East and Asia country, something like that. So I think it's just a play game for the West and United States to control their power or the influence in Middle East and Asia to and also I think it's because they have a long history with Islam, and they don't want to see that when we talk about religion, we talk about the people who umat, their umat, right? When Islam and Christian is all and now is number one and number two, the most umat, and I think I see the not fight. I see the competition between the two religions, and then because the white people control the world, they labelize the Islam as a terrorist, and it cannot happen when when to be a Christian or something, but Canada make a good move when they declare Proud Boys, the Trump fanatic supporter, as a terrorist. It's also open a lot of people eyes to see that it's not about religion after all. It's all about politics, and then they just use the religion as a tool. Thank you, Mr. Peter. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Eka, for your point of view. That's a good statement, actually. I think we're going to move to the next slide first to explain more about that, maybe. Okay, yeah. Actually, there are four waves or modern terrorism according to the FSC report. Say that there is an anarchist wave in terrorism. Probably it's already mentioned before that the definition of terrorism itself is not that bad actually back then in an anarchist wave, in a new left wave. Because in anarchist wave, probably we can remember again about the the overthrow of the Russian Tsar. It's also called anarchist wave in terrorism. It aims to win the political reformation from authoritarian government. And then also there's an anti-colonial wave. They were a nationalist that opposed the colonialism to fight the national sovereignty. For example, it's like an Irish Republican Army, if you can remember that maybe. Or there's also related to self-determination actually. It's quite well known in Europe empire. And the third one, there's a new left wave. New left wave. It is, for example, it's like a red brigades in Japanese Red Army. Like it was a group of new left revolutionary who was fight against colonialism and proclaimed themselves as a group who struggled for the sake of third world countries. And the first wave is there is a religious wave that is expected to be end in 2025. It aims to establish a religious country, just like so many happens lately in our world. Okay, I think we can move to the next slide. It's quite cracking actually. It's just part of group of terrorism and their base. So there are a lot of terrorist organization actually in this world. It is not just based on Islam. It is not just based on religious spectrum actually. There are Al Qaeda and ISIS. It refers to Muslim and Islam. They say like that. And there's also Ku Klux Klan, if you can recognize it, and many others like others terrorist organization that is not just referred to Islam. There's also Buddha, Hindu, and so on and so on. Okay, yeah, we can move. So, I'd like to ask you guys again, do you agree that Islam is extremism do more harm than other extremist movement? As I said before, that it's not about Islamic extremists. It's not just about Islamic extremists. There are so many other extremist organizations. So do you agree that Islamic extremists do more harm than others? Yeah, Mr. Aji, time is yours.
I will write down on my clothes. Why always me, like Balotelli, right? Okay. Maybe I disagree with this because when you look at Xi Jinping regime and who's the president of India and also in Myanmar and so on and so forth, they are not Muslim and they are doing genocide and killing a lot of people. Then what had been killed, for example, a Muslim, in quotes, right? In quotes. However, I just want to, what's that? Relating with the previous story that of course when you are international relations students you will read Marshall Gangs and Revolutionist Way. Of course, for collecting the resources, for example the mass of the people, you should, for example, share your own power. It's not only about your materials but also for your identity, your interests. And mostly if in the previous decade, for example, or previous century, you are using identity like what is your religion, and we have the same, what is that, a purpose for achieving, for example, not usury economy, for example, and you are opposing for example, a country, it can be a country that is creating usury economy, right? It has been prohibited in Islam and in Christian also, right? So for example, like that. So in that movement, in Marshall Gang, there are steps that, of course, identity is pivotal in that case. However, I do agree with Eka's statement previously that everything is coming from the economic side. Yes, indeed. But when we can, for example, challenge the mainstream of thinking now, I can say that 90% or 100% of university in Indonesia, in economic term, economic curriculum, they are garbage. And also Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge, and so on and so forth. The famous universities in this world, they are garbage on the economic field. they are losing the power of the developing countries to be what's that? What's that? Daulat. I forgot that term. Sovereign. All right. So, for example, yeah, I give you an example. Actually, we can empower. We can, for example, hiring the people, unworking people, unemployed. You can hire them at all. You can create free education. We can create free, for example, of healthcare. We can do it. And also we can create zero interest rate policy. It means when you're borrowing from the banks and you will pay back it in zero interest rates. You can do it as long you know that your country is currency issuer, not currency user, and the money is not coming from the barter. Money is a tax credit. For example, I give you a question. In the first time in this country, when this country is built up, what thing that can be taxed back to the government? Nothing, right? Of course, government should spend the money first to the economy, and then they can tax it back, right? So more you can spend, more you can tax. That's simple term. It means unemployment is coming, for example, is coming from lack of spending from the government. So who can we judge? Government, of course. So in that case, of course, I will relate the books of Aaron Acemoglu in this his book Why Nation Fail, and also in his book The Origin of Economic what's that? The Origin of Economic Democracy and Aristocracy. But that's the book. So the point is like this: when a country is, for example, using democracy system, there is a existing government and the opposition. Opposition always challenge, for example, the existing government, for example, let's say executive government, to implement what has been demanded by the majority, for example. And then for doing that, they will do, for example, the extractive government will do three things. The first is they will do, what's that? Repercussion, what is the term? Persecution for the people who oppose that policy. And then when they have large power, for example, like something like that, they will do repression. Of course, they will do repression to repress them for not, for example, implementing their policy to the existing government. And then in the last, the existing government, when they have no power anymore, because, for example, the rebellion is too strong, like what the story has been told by our moderator, they will do consolidation, implementing both the interests of the majority that have power, de facto political power, and then implementing it to the de jure political power. So that is the dynamics. In every time, we will see that what's that fight. Because, for example, majority and elites have different interests. For example, in the tax redistribution, the elites need less and the majority needs more, for example. That's very different, very opposite. In that case, of course, there's no time except for winning the de jure and de facto political power through the revolutionary way. And then it can be judged as a terrorism, but this is the consequences. Maybe that is my opinion. Thank you so much. It's too long, right?
Damn long, but nice. Okay, it seems like Miss Shafira went out for.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, back. Okay.
I'm so sorry. There is
Okay.
a super bad connection that out of sudden happens to me. This is kind of force majeure, I think. Am I audible? Yes. Okay. So, can one person tell me where were we?
Yeah, Mr. Raji
It was Mr. Aji, right? Oh my God, I have to blame you, I think, for this. Okay, I think we're going to move to another speakers, maybe. Mr. Alexa, would you like to give some of your opinions?
Yeah, only a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, only a little bit. I think this question is kind of clickbait, right? It tried to trigger us to speak up because, in fact, I frankly do not support this statement saying that Islam extremists do more harm than other extremist movement. But factually, there are more other extremists who also harmful, right? I mean, they more harm, or even they also create distractions toward the societies, like extremists in what has been said by Mr. Aji before in US, India, Myanmar currently. So yeah, whenever it exists in the world. So when we agree with this statement saying that Islam extremism is harmful, which means that we need to, overthrow the Islam's extremist or other extremism. Because in my opinion, whenever whenever it is in the world, there's always their own extremist clubs or extremist groups, right? In India, it's called Hindu. In US, in my as far as I know, it's called white supremacy and others. So why they appear? They appear. I do agree with has previous statements. It's due to something's called alienation, right? So they try to find a way out to problems that they faced in the world. So when we want to tackle the situation, we need to tackle this situation, making this problem appear, like economical problems or lacking of education and so on and so forth. But as far as I know, we need to also, as an educated people, we need to make like self-correction, right? Why this kind of terrorism existed in our society? Because we are, as educated people, we have less organization. Oh, sorry, it's like organizing. We have less organizing activities than terrorist activities, right? Um, like organizations like ISIS or even things like that, they have good things, they have good publications to convince others to do so, right? To commit bad things. Therefore, when people are having injustice or alienation, they find that terrorism to express their operations. So I think we need to defeat that with our own movement by creating or serving more solutive solutions to tackle the problems caused by injustice, alienation, or economic issues. Yeah, yeah, I think that's all from.
Okay, that's one.
Where's the moderator? Oh yeah.
Yeah, because she couldn't hear any statements given, and that's why I suggested her to move out, leave out for one, then she will come back soon. Okay, meanwhile, because we have a very limited time, we have like less than 5 minutes to talk about, and why so many people so enthusiastic to talk widely about this discussion, we're going to move to the next slide. Okay, guys, so is the moderator calm already?
Okay, hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, I think there is something wrong with this thing. I cannot hear you guys talk with this, so I think just put it off. The slides, okay? It's a bit. I cannot even read it actually, but I think I know the I think I know what I wrote. So we already talked about the do Islamic extremists do more harm than the other extremist movement. So I think I already got a research before that according to I couldn't see it actually, but in US, in fact, in US, the white supremacy and white nationalism movement do more harm than Islam itself. There are 70 attacks by right-wing and anti-government groups were recorded in a post. The active attacks by so-called Islamic extremism happened in the same year. So I think we can move to the next slide. I think it's the last question maybe. So yeah, we come to the question of how do we prevent the act of terrorism? I think there are so many talk about that. How do we prevent this? Prevent but not, how do you say? Maybe we can prevent it from the very first thing like stop the radicalization in a bad connotation, a bad, and a bad, yeah, you know, the bad connotation of radicalism itself. Is there anyone who wants to give their opinion toward this? How do we prevent it? I see Mr. Chikone. Yeah.
Okay. How do we prevent the acts of terrorism? First of all, I will say that we should enact the proper law. I mean, the enforcement of law should be maintained and also adapted by the government system, because the terrorism will not appear in the developed countries. I mean, just only even, but it will be appear in the authoritarian country, that they don't give justice for every single person. And the second is education, because if it come from the meaning of religion, I mean, it could be from the holy book or whatever is it, and they cannot translate it well, perhaps in the term of rebellion and also in the term of faith and also in the term of heaven. So we should educate them in the proper way, because that is, we can say that the radicalization in the term of the government Indonesia. And the third is, let's based on the book that I read from the professor politics and science San Diego, Ahmad Tukuru, in the book Islam, Authoritarian and Underdeveloped, they said, let's we talk about, let's we don't start to talk about the Islam and authoritarian, but let's we start from the beginning and let's discuss about Islam and freedom, because it will be useful. Then also talk about the authoritarian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chikoneng. I think I'm going to move to another speakers here. Mr. Surya, I think. Mr. Surya, how are you? Do you want to give your opinion toward this question? Okay, probably there's some kind of bad connection, just like I was. Okay, maybe. Okay, another one wants to speak up about this. I think there are a lot of questionable about how do we have to prevent this act of terrorism. Mr. Ahmad Al Khairi, I think, do you want to give your opinion? You are mute.
Yeah, thanks for the chance. Finally, at the end here, I can conclude that, you know, from all of your explanations and your opinions, guys, when these kind of questions, how do we prevent acts of terrorism? We see there are 3 steps before we going to the terrorism term. There are extremists and also radicalism. So, for example, like people around us here, like in our family, in our very small scale, we should having a harmony relationship with our family first, because that is quite very vital in our you know, fundamental in thoughts and also in mind for our children, especially because children as the next generations, we should protect them to avoid this kind of terrorism actions. Besides, like Mr. Chikoneng's previous statements, it is also important as well to enforce the the justice from the law side, from the government side, but also it is also talks about the the importance of education, well educations for our family first, and also our children's and the people around us, because we don't know exactly this kind of terrorism ideology is coming from anywhere, because children is also very vulnerable to get this kind of misperspective because of so many medias also involved toward this kind of influence in brainwash, yeah, in brainwashing, the people to commit the terrorism actions. So the point is about, yeah, education and also family relationship should be harmony first at first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ahmad Al Khairi, for your point of view. I think Mr. Indra Wanov, one minute to talk only.
Yeah, well, so based on the index of global terrorism, there are the several oceans or the several regions that's impacted by terrorism, that is Arab, Southeast Asia, and Africa. So what kind of thing behind that is because of they have a problem. The problem is first education. Yeah, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Arab, yeah, they got the problem with their education, such as in Yemen, in Sudan, and others. They got a problem with that. And the second is economics. The countries that I mentioned also that low that get a problem based on the index terrorism global in this position is because of the low in their economics. So these are the reasons that this country, yeah, should make Indonesian also should make they are strong in economics. Many people wanna die. It's better they die on the war then they are die by yourself without eat something. So this is the reason that they prefer to go with terrorists, and they got money, they can laugh, and they give money to their family and others, so they got the glory. So these are the reasons that the economic it should be should be improved by our government, how to get a good economics. And the last, yeah, we should give the strong justice. Yeah. It's like the right punishment. For example, Ambrosi, several years ago, you can take them as yours. Yeah. For example, you can take them as the employer of this country. You can make Ambrosi as the slavery because he has a skill to make a bomb. He has a skill to make a gun and make him suffer as the rest of his life. And also it will impact the military, and also it will impact the economic Indonesia better than they buy to other countries like America and Russia, because we have Ambrosi. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Indrewanov. I see in the previous, Mr. Alex wants to give his opinion, I think.
Yeah, actually, my statement has been mentioned
Okay,
by the previous one, but I just want to mention one thing. I just want to mention one thing, because as far as I'm concerned, the root of problem from the previous speaker said that it's more structural um, instead of cultural. Okay, it's more structural instead of cultural. So we need to tackle this situation structurally, meaning that as far as I see, so it is about injustice, about elimination. Well, the authority should tackle problems created by injustice like poverty, oppressions, and so on and so forth, by creating ways to create welfares like health cares, or even free educations to people, and giving proper jobs to people, so they won't think of doing crimes or terrorist acts again, because they don't have any time to think of that, right? Because they have been prosperous enough or safe enough to run their lives. In addition, they also I just want to mention again, as educated people where that terrorism is bad idea, we need to like defeat these beliefs with other more solutive beliefs that we need. Because I think as someone who believes on something, we need to be radical. We need to be serious or extremist on it, right? So then we can tackle those problems. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alex. I think I'm going to give 1 minute again to wrap up our discussion to next discussion. Probably one speaker want to wrap up. Anyone wants to wrap up our to next discussion?
GY, are you smiling? Probably you want to add something.
Yeah, my conclusion is too long. But not me.
Okay, maybe Mr. Aji wants to wrap up this to next discussion.
No, I think maybe the others.
Okay, the others. I see Mr. Eka.
You wrap up the discussion, moderator.
I just have a last statement actually before I move this mic to the host. Well, in order to preventing the leverage of terrorism or extremism, radicalism, I urge and I really highly urge all of you guys, maybe people around you to grow up the mindset of critical thinking, because I think that's the point of all of this. We're being radical, that's okay actually. Even Hashim Musadi have a statement that being radical is normal and even supposed to do that way, supposed to that way, because basically what's in your thought, in your minds, it couldn't be criminalized, but when it manifested to an action, especially violence, such a thing, it can be criminalized. But the way you think, it cannot be criminalized. So you have to be radical actually, but just use the mindset of critical thinking in order to have a better concept to all of this. If you don't have, perhaps one morning, you could just wake up as an extremist or a terrorist, and the worst part is you don't even realize it. Yeah, so that's all. I think. Thank you so much, and I'm really sorry for the bad things that probably happens during our discussion. So I give the mic to the host again.
Okay, that's really great presentation and also nice moderating you did, Ms. Shafi. So here I'm going to give you several vocabularies and some corrections based on the grammatical inaccuracy that I have been just pointing out after listening to the whole discussion. Wait. Wait a moment, guys, because yeah. Okay. Okay, wait. Sorry. So here it is. Something that we highlight several vocabularies exactly. First thing first is that oppressed, ditekan, it's like the how to say repress, yeah, ditindas, okay. Afraidness, there is no afraidness basically, ya. Ketakutan is fear or dread. Ya, jadi tidak semuanya bisa di ness-ness, ya. Consciousness, happiness, not every adjective can be put into noun or converted into noun by adding up ness at the end of the word. Yeah, so just some or selected words. Kemudian more near should be nearer or closer, lebih dekat. It's only satu suku kata, satu ya. Near. Okay. Distinguish means differentiate, membedakan. Yeah, sometimes we can use differ. Yeah, membedakan. Syndicate is like affiliation or association of companies. Sindikat. Ya. Chaos bisa diganti dengan riot or pandemonium. Okay, biar sounds cool. Ya. Abolish can mean eradicate, membasmi, menghilangkan, melenyapkan, menghapus, get rid of. Pseudo, bawahnya abolish ya. Riot pandemonium itu apa, keributan ya. Kalau abolish baru eradicate, get rid of itu artinya melenyapkan. Pseudo, impostor, fake, palsu ya. Take control, jadi ada beda ternyata. Tadi aku udah ngebandingin take control sama take over tuh beda. Kalau take control itu take hold, take charge, mengambil alih kepemimpinan. Tapi kalau take over itu sudah langsung ranahnya co-deatate gitu ya. Jadi apa ya, illegally crushing the government's incumbent governments kayak gitulah. Ya. Adore bisa diganti dengan fancy. Sadar, realize, be aware of. One person will be believe, harusnya tanpa be di situ ya, will believe gitu. Gimmick bisa diganti, is like a clever maneuver or twist gitu ya. Sovereignty, kedaulatan. And the last, it will be appear, it should be, it will appear. So there's less be that need to be removed. Yeah. Okay, I think that's for the things that I can share with you regarding the interesting vocabularies and also terms, grammatical accuracy that I can share with you guys. I really enjoy the discussion and I hope I can see you guys next week. But before closing and everything, we would like to invite you to open the camera and I will... Oh, the cafe has been shut down. It's so dark right there. Okay. Come on, everyone. Please open the camera. It's time to take a picture, photograph. Come on, guys.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Kak, sing that song.
Okay, Mr. Surya Dalbit. Okay, Fitri.
Ngapain lo gelap-gelap, Kak?
Okay.
Rezim udah gelap. Tambah lagi kamera juga gelap.
Udah kayak masa depan bangsa aja nih.
Okay, on the count of three. Hey, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Wait, I was thinking.
Sorry for Arsenal supporters.
Okay, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Okay. One last time.
Sorry for your loss.
Sekali lagi. 1, 2, 3.
Peace. Damai.
Okay, peace.
Okay, thank you. Super thank you, guys. The last, we say, Hell Ota.
Yesterday, say tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. See you in the next
Darkness, you say darkness.
Thank you for reaching out. Yeah.
Everyone.